Okay, moving on. Our next teller is Ardian Totten.
Well, Betty and I are doing this together.
Okay, we have a combo coming up.
The story it is. It happened in my house.
Come on, girls.
You tell us.
Ardian and Betty.
This is one of the few true stories that's happened to Betty and me that we can tell in a gathering such as this one.
We've known each other 30 years and raised 7 boys, so we have seen it.
I don't know whether this is really necessary or not. Okay, well,
School teacher boys.
yeah, okay. All right, we'll stay with mine. One evening in the fall, it was a beautiful fall evening, Betty and I were sitting in her living room facing each other. I was facing the entry foyer, and she was facing me, and we were having a nice drink of...
And we only had one glass.
Yeah, we really only had one glass, and I looked up and saw this beautiful animal walking through the house, and I knew Betty's animal. She had a dog and a cat, and this wasn't one of them, and I said, Betty, look at that beautiful... And then more of the animal came into view, and I said, skunk.
Across my entry hall.
Yeah. And so we both jumped up and said, she looked at me, and then I said, oh, expletive, which was not good because I just had Betty's son, Andy, in my class, and he didn't know that I used any expletives at all. That was appalling, but this was a crisis.
Having had 2 older brothers, he knew most of it.
So Betty says, what should I say? I said, oh my God, what should we do?
Oh, that's what I said. I said, oh my God, what should we do? And Ardian said,
Call the police, of course. Well, the Signal Mountain Police serve in many kinds of situations. But instead, we
got the dog, which was under my kitchen table where it lives in case there might be something to eat. And we got it out on the sun porch because if it barked, it was all over. And my cat was already looking in the window like this, like what's going to happen. And so I said to my youngest son, do something. There's a skunk in here, get it out. And he said, what do you want me to do? So he did something. Artie and I didn't do anything, he did.
By this time, Betty and I are on the sun porch looking around the corner watching the skunk, and Betty's son walks into the living room. He looks at the skunk looks at him. The skunk makes a circuit around the baseboard, which I've just learned from Carol is what skunks like to do, among other things. And then they sort of sidled by each other, and it went out the front door, and that was the end.
First it made a tour of the living room.
Oh, okay.
It did. It walked down the side of the couch. And then made a little circuit, and I was already planning my new house.
Right.
So he went out there.
And that was always on the skunk. So all was well that ended well.
But we now know what to do, because the next morning, of course, I had to tell my students at school about the skunk. We don't always look for the fur. And anyway, and they gave me really good advice. This one, all you have to do is just back a tanker truck up to your front door with a fire hose and shoot everything down with tomato juice. So now you know.
That gets rid of skunk scent. End of story.
Alright, I don't have a big story like David. I have a little story. And I have lots of stories that I could have told you about things that happened at Red Bank High School, but you probably don't want to know, and we sure did have a lot of fun, and we did a lot of laughing about things. Like once when a woman came storming into my room to inform me that I should be working at McDonald's. Sometimes that sounded like a good idea. Anyway.
Wait a minute. What happened? Come on, what happened?
I want to know.
She stormed in.
Oh, well, that was when we had just gotten through reading Death of a Salesman, which you know is a real downer. And so we decided that we would kind of lighten things up, and we would, the next day, kind of do a Jerry Springer on the family and how it's dysfunctional. So we assigned rows, and people, you went to Red Bank, so you know this kind of thing happens. And so we assigned rows, and you know, we had Linda and the husband and the dysfunctional children, Biff and whatever his name was. And then we had the slut from Boston, okay, that Willie goes and sees. Well, just as this woman was in my room, in my face, telling me that I would be working at McDonald's, the guy who's playing the woman from Boston, he's a football player, and he's on a mini skirt and all his socks and this great big wig, says, "Miss Ulmer, are you having a problem?" Anyway, I do miss those days, I really do. But I still hang out with the people that I taught with in the English department at Redbone. And something happened with the two of us about 3 weeks ago down at the Y. And Barb and I go about 2 or 3 times a week to water aerobics. You know, you put on the belts and you have all the weights and you do all these exercises that don't do any good, but it feels good. And so occasionally we can't go to 2 or 3 times a week, and so we make it up on a weekend afternoon. And this is what happened 3 weeks ago. We went on a Saturday afternoon, and there's usually hardly anybody there on a Saturday afternoon. If you get there before the birthday party starts at 4 o'clock, and you don't want to be there then. So Barb and I got all in our gear, and we were just so virtuous doing all our exercises. And there were a few other people in the pool, and then there was not anybody else in the pool. But we really didn't think anything about it. In a little while, a lifeguard comes in, and there's a trail of people behind this lifeguard, maybe 10 or 12 people. And that's not unusual because lifeguards and the staff give tours of the pool and the whole facility regularly to people who might want to go. But this group looked a little different. They didn't look really Y-ish, you know, not all athletic like Barb and me. I'm taking offense at that, excuse me. And so, anyway, they go down to the shallow end of the pool. And it's kind of a mixed group, kind of youngish and oldish and middle-ish, and they look like they might be an extended family, but Barb and I had a lot of gossip to cover that day, so we weren't paying that much attention to them. So, we should have noticed that one man did have on a white suit. So we could keep on doing our little exercises, and then we go down to the rope that separates the shallow from the deep end, because that's when we do our highly effective tummy trimmers. And so people are just not on my side. So we are facing the deep end of the pool. And here we are. We both have the school teacher voices, you know, that just reverberate. And so we're doing all of these little things, and we are talking about whether or not they're doing any good, and how much it hurts, and all this sort of thing. We finish after we've done about 15 or 20 of these, and we turn around, and the man in the white suit is standing there with a red book in his hand, and there are people in the water wet, completely wet, and Barb looks at me and says, not in her school teacher voice, but even louder, "Oh my God, it's baptism." So there we were. We were not dressed for a baptism. We were not dating like we were a baptism. And so my first impulse was to say, "Hey y'all, we didn't know that we were good, and if we'd known this, we could have acted better." But then I thought, no, that's not good. So we decided we have to get out of here. This is not the place we want to be. But to go out the shallow end, we would have had to go right through them in our bathing suits, rip up the stairs, and leave. So that was not an option. The other option was to go on down to the deep end of the pool, climb up the ladder. But Barb had just had knee surgery, and that would have meant me pushing her rear right up there. And that was not a really an option. So what we did, don't picture all this. So what we did was we paddled without making any noise at all, very quietly over to the far end of the pool, and we were just two little bobbing heads acting like we did not exist. And so then the people laughed. So the moral of this is, if you ever need any detective work done, if you never need any clues to be found, do not come to me, because I am totally oblivious of my surroundings much of the time. And through the grace of God and Clairol, I am blonde on the outside, but I will tell you I am still blonde on the inside.
Thank you, Betty.